I'm holding that spot. I'm a spot holder.
No. Come on, Gwen. Come on. Gwen.
We should get you next to us. Excuse me, Chris? Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Got a big ass one. Where's Gwen? Where do you want them to go? Gwen, come up here. Where do you want them to go? Can
you take a step back, please? Everyone take a step back, please. And be careful with what's behind you.
A lot of new faces out here.
Can I get one an extra one?
I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, you stay there. You don't move that.
No justice.
No peace.
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 What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we demand?
Justice.
What do we demand?
Justice.
What do we demand?
Justice.
What do we expect?
Justice.
What do we expect?
Justice.
What do we expect?
Justice.
What do we pay for?
Justice.
What do we pay for?
Justice.
What do we pay for?
Justice.
My name is Reverend.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
My name is Reverend Kirsten John Foy, and I'm the president and founder of the Ark of Justice. We are joined by a host of leaders and activists who have been standing besides Gwen Carr and the Garner families from day one. We are joined, of course, by the matriarch and the leader of our movement, the very example of dignity and a leader exemplar in her own right, the mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr. We are joined together in unity with our co-laborers from CPR, from Justice League and Justice Committee, from the Malcolm X Grassroots, from a host of organizations and elected officials, starting with our very own New York City public advocate who has been on the front lines with the Garner family from day one, Jamani D. Williams. And the city councilwoman who represents the area of Staten Island where Eric was killed or murdered by Officer Pantaleo. She has been a stalwart and a steward of justice, and she is here today as she's been from day one, Ms. Debbie Rose. Woo. Yeah. Woo. 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 The chairman and the current steward of criminal justice oversight and law enforcement accountability in our city, who, despite the fact that he's from an entirely different borough from where Eric was killed, has not failed nor shrunk from the responsibility and the obligation to stand up for all New Yorkers, Mr. Donovan Richards. Yeah. There's a host, and I'm not gonna go, I cannot mention everyone. So if I don't mention you, forgive me. We're here today in no small measure to the unfortunate fact that 5 years ago, the mayor and the then police commissioner failed to exercise appropriate leadership and fire Daniel Pantaleo.
Yeah.
5 years later, thousands of tears, millions of feet marching, we finally have a glimpse of what justice should look like.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's only a glimpse.
That's right.
We're not here today for a victory lap. We're not here today to sing a celebratory song. We're not here today to pat a system on the back that's done only what was expected of it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And late.
And did so 5 years too late.
That's right.
That's right.
It is not lost upon us that the district attorney of Richmond County failed to do his job
Yeah.
Yes.
and indict Daniel Pantaleo for the murder of Eric Garner. It is not lost upon us that the Justice Department, under both the Obama administration,
That's right.
Yeah.
let's
yeah.
be clear and honest
That's right. That's right.
about what we're talking about
Yes,
here.
sir. Take them to church.
Both the Obama administration
Yes, sir.
as well as the Trump administration
Yes, sir.
Right.
denied this family, this city, and this nation justice for the murder of Eric Garner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Political games have been played from day one.
That's right.
Political games to cover up the full extent of what we all witnessed that day. Eric Garner having the life choked out of him by Daniel Pantaleo and having the justice choked out of him by all of the officers that stood by and did nothing.
That's right. That's right.
They want us to be happy that after 5 years, a man that the world witnessed choked the life
Yeah.
out of Eric Garner finally lost his job.
Yeah.
How low are our standards today
That's right.
that we should be expected to celebrate the firing of a man that violated office and departmental policy,
That's right.
applied a fatal chokehold to an innocent, unarmed man,
Yeah.
and was allowed to continue to enrich himself,
That's
Right.
right.
to become more of a wealthy killer cop after the death of Eric Garner,
That's right.
who is now allowed to draw down the money that he put into his pension over the last 5 years. We're not here to celebrate. We're here to correct the record and turn the next page for you all.
That's right.
There is still a district attorney
That's right.
in Staten Island.
Yeah. That's right.
There is still the opportunity to revisit the grand jury. There's still an opportunity to release the grand jury minutes so that we can all know which cops lied
That's right.
to hide the truth.
Yeah.
Because there are some liars who are still currently hiding the truth
That's right.
and protecting their fellow officers. So we're not here today to celebrate. We are here today to put the system on continued notice. We are going back to Staten Island.
That's right.
We are going back to the district attorney to demand that the grand jury be reconvened, that there be a new investigation, not just into his murder, but into the grand jury proceedings themselves.
That's right.
We're going back to the mayor.
Yes.
Your job is not yet done, sir.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Tell them.
We need to put into law and codify a ban on the chokehold today.
That's right. That's right. Tell them.
The city council and the mayor have the authority to do that today.
That's right.
As has been stated by Reverend Sharpton and others, we're going back to the state.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that police officers cannot hide behind a badge.
That's right.
While performing criminal acts that result in the death of innocent, unarmed black men. We want all the police officers that were on the scene that day fired.
That's right.
All of them gone. All of them. Daniel Pantaleo still has due process. He's still appealing. But while you're allowing him to continue through his due process, we've got to make sure that the city doesn't fail to acknowledge that Gwen and the family still have their process to go through. A process of grieving and mourning that can only be addressed and closed and be given closure in full accountability for all responsible.
That's right.
We're going to hear from a lot of people, so I won't take up much more time. But I will say this. In all of the years that we have stood with Gwen, where they have lied about who her son was and what he was doing on that day as the predicate for his murder, she has not shrunk. She has not withered.
That's right.
She has not buckled. She has not bent. She has not bowed.
That's right.
Even in the midst of the death of her granddaughter, Erica, who died of a broken heart because of the denial of justice.
That's right.
Even in the midst of Harry having to just bury her own husband.
Mercy. Mercy. Mercy.
Who stood by her side on the front line, fighting for justice for his son, Eric, who died of a heart attack, another broken heart. So you want us to be happy with a man being fired when his actions caused the lives of 3 innocent people? We have not, to coin a phrase, lost our minds. But we have gained a new sense of purpose. All of the officers, all of those who are responsible must be held to account, Commissioner O'Neill. And I close with this. There are some that will criticize James O'Neill. There are some that will say he has been part of the problem. I will say this. He is the only man that has demonstrated any amount of courage and produced any amount of leadership. So there's a lot to criticize in his statement. There's a lot to point to say, sir, you are out of order. But I choose to reserve that judgment for a different day. Today, James O'Neill exercised the courage that the mayor, that Attorney General Loretta Lynch,
That's right. Talk their name.
that Attorney General Barr,
And it did.
that the District Attorney of Richmond County and the Southern District of New York failed to exercise. Let's hear now from our co-laborer before we hear from Gwen, who has also been on the front lines, fighting and keeping this movement alive and progressing. Our freedom fighter, Lloyd Cologne, of Communities United for Police Reform and the Justice Committee.
Stay up here with me. Today, as soon as Police Commissioner O'Neill announced that he was firing Daniel Pantaleo, what we saw was Mayor de Blasio give mediocre comments, similar to his mediocre run as mayor of this city. Do not be fooled. Do not get got by this mayor and the police commissioner's announcement today. The reality in this case is that IAB, the NYPD's Internal Affairs Bureau, recommended that Pantaleo be charged years ago. And it was Mayor de Blasio and Police Commissioner O'Neill who decided not to move forward with charges against O'Neill. Charges against Pantaleo.
Freudian slip.
That is what they decided. O'Neill should be charged too. No. This was decided. NYPD only charged Kizzy Adonis. Sergeant Kizzy Adonis that we've heard absolutely nothing from.
That's right.
The Garner family has heard nothing about the charges that have been pending for Kizzy Adonis for years now. It was the CCRB that brought us to this day.
That's right.
Woo! Woo!
That's right.
And more importantly,
That's right.
it was the mother of Eric Garner.
That's right.
Woo! It was Mrs. Gwen Carr with the support of New Yorkers
That's right.
that got Pantaleo fired today. It was by no means Mayor de Blasio, and it was not Police Commissioner O'Neill. This is the power of the people and the power of the Garner family never giving up for 5 years.
5 years and 5 weeks.
De Blasio also in his comments this morning said this is over. He said this is closure, that this is done with. That is wishful, delusional thinking on behalf of the mayor.
Tell them.
This is far from over. We have NYPD officer Mark Ramos and NYPD officer Craig Furlani. Craig Furlani and Mark Ramos. Look at their faces, both of them testified. They testified that they heard Eric Garner say he could not breathe, and they did nothing. Charges need to be brought against them. This is a chargeable offense. Don't get it twisted. It is a chargeable offense.
That's right.
What we also have is, everybody knows Lieutenant Christopher Bannon, the officer who texted.
Wow.
What did he text? Everybody knows. He said, not a big deal, when told that Eric Garner may be dead on arrival.
Yeah.
His lack of care for a New Yorker, for a black man dying in our streets, is a chargeable offense.
That's right.
He needs to be off the police force. Kizzy Adonis, the only officer with charges pending by the NYPD. Sergeant Kizzy Adonis was the commanding officer on the scene. Commanding officer who failed to supervise. Her current charges pending are for failure to supervise. Yet 5 years later, here she is, still on the police force.
Wow.
The Garner family not hearing anything, not one word about Kizzy Adonis, not knowing if they're going to be forced to sit through another trial. Another trial is unacceptable to have the Garner family sitting through.
That's right.
Unacceptable.
And if there's not a trial, then under de Blasio's NYPD secrecy law 50A, this can get pleaded out. And the Garner family can never know what happened with Kizzy Adonis. That is unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
And then we come to Justin D'Amico. NYPD officer Justin D'Amico. Got him?
Got him.
Justin D'Amico has no charges pending. He was Pantaleo's partner that day. Justin D'Amico, look at his face. It's important that we put all these cops' faces out here because they got no business in our streets.
That's right.
In Maldonado's report that was leaked this week, we also heard that Justin D'Amico, in official reports, said that there was no excessive force used.
No force.
No force, said there was no force used. Then the video came out and showed that Eric Garner was strangled to death in a chokehold. Not only did he lie on official reports, he's also the one who charged Eric Garner with a felony after he was dead. A felony that would have required Eric Garner to have sold 10,000 cigarettes. 10,000 cigarettes. We can't have officers who lie on official reports and officers who falsely charge people, especially dead New Yorkers, with felonies. Every single one of these officers need to be fired. And here it is, and you've heard it from them themselves in their own testimonies, in their own reports. These are all fireable offenses. We don't need these cops on our force.
That's right. That's right.
What? Our next speaker needs no introduction. This is the mother of Eric Garner, our leader and warrior in this movement, Mrs. Gwen Carr.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I thank you all for coming out with the support that you have been giving me for 5 years. It's been 5 long years that I have fought this fight. I have not fought it alone because many of you have been out here with me. Many of you have been here from day one. Like Minister Kirsten John Foy said, he was with me from the beginning. Reverend Sharpton with me from the beginning. The Justice Committee, CPR, and many of you who's out here from the beginning, who helped me fight this fight, who helped me get to this point. I could not have done it without you.
That's right.
Thank you.
We love you.
Yeah, we love you.
We fought and fought to get the NYPD to give us a file number so the CCRB would bring charges against Pantaleo. We fought that fight for a couple of years, and then what they do to try to appease us, they give it to us on the anniversary, on the 4th anniversary, the eve of the 4th anniversary of my son's death. That was supposed to appease us. Well, let me tell you, it didn't. It just made me more angrier. And it just put more fight into me.
All right.
You know, I had a lot of stumbling blocks that has come up to me, but I'm not stopping this fight.
That's right.
There's many of my family members who has been taken away from me since I started this fight. Many of them you don't even know, but you do know my granddaughter Erica.
All right.
She died the day before New Year's Eve in 2018. It was just, I'm sorry, it was 2017. Then just a few weeks ago, I lost my husband, who stood here, and he stood in this very spot with me. He was over here in Police Plaza with me while we went through that long, drawn out, that trial. That trial, we had to wait because Pantaleo's lawyer wanted to go on vacation or take 2 weeks to bring in his expert witness, an expert who never even examined my son's body, who never even seen the report.
That's right.
Now he wants to tell us that it was not a chokehold. How would you know and you never looked to see what the evidence was or was not? But you know what? Pantaleo, your regime, London, y'all can appeal all you want.
That's right.
But I'm still out here. I'm out here for the long run. You come out here against me, I'm out here.
That's right.
And you cannot scare me away. Yeah, Pantaleo, you may have lost your job, but I lost a son.
That's right.
July 17, 2014. I lost my son. You cannot replace that. You can get another job, maybe at Burger King, okay? So, but you know, it's just disheartening to go through this. And like we said, we're not finished. We have other officers that we have to go after. You have heard the names. We know the wrongdoing that they have done. So I would like the press to put it out there. Show the pictures, say the names, do the roll call, because they all need to lose their job. New York is not safe with officers out here like that.
That's right.
These officers are still on the payroll. Pantaleo was supposed to be on desk duty making 6-figure salaries. Put me on desk duty, give me a 6-figure salary.
There you go.
You know, but no, other New Yorkers can't get that.
That's right.
If the shoe would have been on the other foot, my son or myself, we would have long been sentenced,
That's right.
probably to life, or probably they'd have brought the death sentence back.
right.
Who knows?
Tell the truth.
But you know what? I don't care what they do, who they appeal to. Even though Commissioner O'Neill said that his decision can't be overturned, but we know that it's going to be a fight out there. And I'm out there for the fight. I just want y'all to fight with me. And thank you. Thank you.
Leave the front.
No peace.
No justice. No peace.
He's just going to call you on.
Our next speaker is someone who is not unknown to us. But before I introduce him, I want to make 2 quick points. First of all, I want you all in the press to juxtapose what you see standing here
Yes, sir. Yep.
with the image
Yeah.
of the police union and what you saw standing there.
That's right.
What you see here is real New York.
That's right.
That's right.
What you see here are white New Yorkers,
Yeah.
black New Yorkers,
Yeah.
brown New Yorkers,
Yeah.
men and women New Yorkers. What you saw from the PBA
Yeah.
looked like what's remaining of the polar ice caps. All white, all male,
Yeah.
and all cold-hearted, with no ability to empathize or sympathize for Gwen's loss, and no ability to recognize their place and their position as our employees.
Yeah.
You work for us.
That's right.
Wipe that smile and smirk off your faces, because we're coming for you too. Pat Lynch, you are an employee of the city of New York. We are coming for you for insubordination, for inciting riots, and for inciting police officers to violate the Taylor Act. Oh, we know the law, brother.
That's right.
And we're coming for you too.
Must go.
Let us now,
Go.
now that I've said everything that Jamani wanted to say, thank you all for joining us. Oh, why we got?
Take a note.
He got the big job in the big car, so he's all right. My brother from another mother, a fighter, a warrior for justice. And he's a new cyclist, apparently, too. The public advocate of the city of New York, Jamani Williams.
Peace and blessings, everyone. I just want to give another round of applause to Ms. Gwen Carr, who has managed to look more regal today than even when she stepped out 5.5 years ago. Through a lot of pain. Through a lot of pain. And of course, my colleague Donovan Richards, who has joined the ire of Pat Lynch. I know he's wearing that as a badge of honor. I know it's a lot of electeds, but I do want to shout out Debbie Rose from Staten Island, who's been here from the beginning. You know, when we heard the result, it was a lot of mixed emotions, because of course, this is the way that you wanted it to go. And I do have to say, I know it was a difficult decision for Commissioner James O'Neill. And I am pleased that he made that decision. But it was made more difficult because we had to wait for 5 years. We would have been way past this if what happened today had happened years ago. And that's where so much of our frustration lies. And we have been relegated to simply asking that you fire someone who murdered somebody on tape using an illegal chokehold. Think about that. Think about what this family is relegated to. Relegated to try and celebrate a simple firing when we know if it was on another foot, it would be so much different. So much different. And as everyone said, as difficult as it is, the conversation doesn't stop, and it cannot stop.
That's right.
And that's why we need real leaders and adults at the table to have this conversation. The fact of the matter is, we know that officers lied. They lied on official documents. You cannot do that and say there shouldn't be accountability. We know that officers didn't seem to care that a man had died. As a citywide elected official, I am tasked to have difficult conversations. We want to have better community-police relationships. It's hard to ask us elected officials to do that when there are officers who people know lied and no accountability.
That's right.
It's hard for us to do that when we know it's going to take 5 years to have a semblance of accountability. And when the water incident happened, within a day, there was arrests.
That's right.
Now, this is the problem that we have. I know we are not anti-police. Being for police accountability is not mutually exclusive with supporting our men and women on the NYPD. It just is not.
That's right.
And that's why Pat Lynch and Ed Mullins, if you cannot be adults at the table, step aside. There are real lives at play here.
Yes.
When you look at the people who are around Pat Lynch, you could have been in the 1960s talking about segregation and the problems with segregation.
That's right.
No one who was with Pat Lynch wants to deal with violence and crime in the communities more than the people who are behind.
That's right.
And the people who live in these communities. How dare you keep surrounding yourself with people who don't live in these communities and tell us that we have no right to ask for accountability. And as a citywide elected official, I always want to be careful with my words. But Pat Lynch, you are trying to bring us down a very dangerous road.
That's right.
That's right.
Do not ask officers not to do their jobs.
Right.
This is the line you're drawing. You think you're drawing another line, but you are drawing a line of saying that these black and brown people, hopefully you call us people, don't have a right to ask for accountability when somebody was murdered on video for the entire world to see using an illegal chokehold.
That's right.
That is not a line that you should draw. We should all come to the table, and I'm going to say this. I know I have never met Daniel Pantaleo. He may be a nice person. He had a record, but he may be a nice person. I know that he is someone's son. He is related to someone. But as was mentioned, her son died.
That's right.
There is no other profession besides this one where people would say someone made a mistake and someone died and no one should be held accountable.
Never would happen.
And this profession is not one we're going to allow that to happen.
That's right. That's right.
I and so many of us want to continue to work with the NYPD so they can play their part in public safety, but we have to do it together. We need adults at the table. And Pat Lynch, if you're going to act like a child, you don't belong at the table.
That's right.
And so police officers who are watching this, who know that Daniel Pantaleo on the force was not good for you in doing your job, do not listen to his rhetoric. Listen to the New Yorkers who are behind this, who want to support you in doing the best job that you can do. And if you are going to continue to ask us to talk about the no snitching code in the streets, we need you to talk about the blue line.
That's right. That's right.
The blue line that people hide behind. We are all human beings with human behavior. We have to get this, we have to work together on this to give a new meaning to what Eric said, that this ends today.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry for stealing all your good stuff, Jamani. I'm gonna ask. No, that was the segregation thing. Was yeah, man.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna ask at this time for the Queen of Staten Island,
Yes.
Yes.
who has been on the fore fighting for justice in the suites and in the streets.
Yeah. It's hard out there.
They have come at her from all different angles and thrown all different type of stuff at her. None of it has stuck.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And she stands taller today than she has ever in her career.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask to join her the fighting council member from Queens, Donovan Richards,
All right.
who I believe has some other aspirations.
Not about that. Not about that.
And another warrior brother of mine from Brooklyn who serves in the city council, Antonio Reynoso. And I'm gonna ask, oh, he left. I'm gonna ask,
Oh, no, he's here.
he's here. I'm gonna ask if they wouldn't mind babysitting the New York State Senator Kevin Parker with them. Oh, and Dan Court.
We do
Brother
mind.
Court, that's right.
We do mind. We'll put
Okay, well, today is a day of unity. But I neglected to mention Dan Court, another progressive giant in the city of New York. If they would all come together and speak in that order, Councilmember Rose, Donovan Richards,
Hey, Councilmember Rose.
Antonio Reynoso, Senator Parker, and Dan Court.
That's right.
How long?
Too long.
How long?
Too long.
How long?
Too long.
How long has this? How long has this one?
Sorry.
All right, they're misreading their cues. How long? It's been too long that this mother has had to suffer the injustice of watching her son murdered in the street and accused of false accusations of doing something, committing a crime that he was not committing. How long?
Too long.
5 years of suffering.
A long time.
5 years of having someone say that what we saw was not so. That we should not believe our eyes.
Yeah.
How long?
9 eyes.
5 years, too long, when Officer Pantaleo was sitting behind a desk, accumulating overtime and making his salary when this family had lost a son. How long? Too long. 5 years. 5 years of judicial disappointments when every level of government, every level that could have addressed this travesty refused to do so. Refused to do so. But insisted that Officer Pantaleo have due process.
Yeah.
What is this but a tale of two cities? A tale of two cities where one part of the city has privilege and the other does not.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take before everybody is entitled to justice? And that the justice system isn't just us sitting in there behind bars and being forcefully treated by the police. The arc of the moral universe is long, and it bends toward justice.
Right.
At an earlier press conference, I talked about that arc being upended. That it looked as if we were not going to get to that day. Well, we're still not at that day, but we're closer than we were. It took courage for Commissioner O'Neill to make the decision that he did. And it is a shame that the police department of New York City does not want to hold accountable bad actors, because that's what Pantaleo was. He broke his own rules and regulations, and he had a history of doing so. And so we're here because Ms. Carr kept up the fight.
That's right.
That's right.
She didn't get weary. She lost family members. I don't know how many of us could have endured this kind of suffering, pain and suffering. And all she wanted was due process. Due process for her son, who was murdered on the streets in Staten Island 5 years ago.
So I'm saying today that while we are here because Commissioner O'Neill has said that he will terminate Officer Pantaleo, we're not here taking a victory lap. We're not here celebrating because there is no victory. Mrs. Carr lost a son. She lost a granddaughter and a husband. There is no victory.
That's right.
There is no victory. So we're here to say that while this verdict, this agreement, this decision is one that we have sought, we know that justice still has not totally been achieved.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right. Thank you.
There are those who will paint everybody standing beside me, in front of me, behind me, as anti-police. But we're not anti-police. We're anti-brutality. We're anti our black men getting killed, their blood strewn on the streets of New York City for no reason.
Talk about it.
Pat Lynch sent mail to thousands of my constituents last weekend. He told them I'm no good. He told them that I'm responsible for water buckets being dumped on his officers. My message to Pat Lynch today, sorry Channel 11 or whoever you are, my message today is, Pat Lynch, you are wrong. We stand with our community.
That's right. That's right.
The mere fact that you continue to defend officers who don't uphold the law or the oath of their badge is a problem. We need you to stand with us.
That's right.
We need you to point out the bad actors. I'm very emotional today because Eric Garner was sentenced to death over a low-level alleged cigarette sale. Is alleged. Is that the price of our life in New York City? Even if it was a cigarette sale, do we deserve to die over a cigarette?
No.
The arc of justice has bended towards us today.
That's right.
But make no mistake that this fight is not over, because we got Ramali Graham. We got Sean Bell. We got Eric Garner. We got so many who will never see justice today.
That's right.
Delron Smalls. So many who have not seen justice. We're not crazy. The mere fact is that black lives have not mattered in this city for far too long. But you know what? We woke. We woke today. We not sleep. The people of New York City are woke today.
Yes.
You might have sent that mail today, but it was undeliverable. The people of my community sent that letter back. They said, we want justice. Pantaleo, any other officers responsible. Let's be clear. If this was a pack of black males walking down the street like the Central Park 5, they would have been charged as accomplices.
That's right.
Because that's what we're charged as.
That's right.
You go out there and do something to an officer, you're charged as an accomplice.
That's right.
These officers were accomplices to the death of Eric Garner, and they must be held responsible.
That's right.
Talk about it.
The mere fact that you could say that his life didn't matter, whoever that sergeant was. He said his lieutenant, I'm sorry.
Not a big deal.
He said it wasn't a big deal. Well, today is a big deal. We showed you that the will of the people will win on any day.
Every day.
Commissioner O'Neill, I want to thank you today for sending a clear message to everyone who serves in this department that when you take that oath, you take it for everyone.
That's right.
But don't get it twisted. We got a long way to go. There are too many black men and women caught up in facial recognition techniques. Their DNA being swabbed. There are policies that are still in place that hinder progress for our communities in the police department. We will not rest until those policies are changed. Let me say that to Pat Lynch. I'm going to wrap up. But I got to say this to Ed Mullins and Pat Lynch. It is time for you to step down.
That's right.
This department is majority black and brown now.
That's
Your
right.
days are numbered.
That's right.
We need some black and brown righteous officers
That's right.
who want to do the right thing to step up and run up against them.
That's right.
And we ought to support them.
That's right.
Because we need justice.
That's
Your
right.
days are white men controlling this city, controlling the department are over. And we got to make sure that we stand with those who stand righteously, with the officers who do serve and protect with dignity our communities every day.
right.
Let's get them out. Your days are over.
That's right.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Justice, no people. No justice, no peace. No justice,
No peace.
No justice,
No peace.
I'm gonna be very quick. It seems like there's a Spanish news media, and I want to make sure that my brothers and sisters in the Latino community also hear this.
Thank you.
Hoy nosotros recibimos un poco de justicia. La justicia de finalmente haber a Panteleo que fuera de la policía. En este momento no queremos gente que se ven como él ser policía en nuestras comunidades. Queremos terminar de ese tiempo. Y Eric Garner fue el que sufrió para nosotros poder recibir eso. Y en este momento estamos aquí al lado de la mamá de Eric Garner diciéndole que gracias por todo el trabajo que ella hizo para asegurar que ya alguien como Panteleo no esté en la fuerza de policía. Pero falta mucho más. Todavía hay 6 otros policías que tienen que salir de la policía, si no, nosotros nunca vamos a recibir justicia. En este momento estoy pidiendo que el alcalde Bill de Blasio y también el oficial de la policía, el comisionado de la policía unido, que siga el proceso de justicia para que podamos nosotros finalmente terminar esta frase de nuestra justicia. Otra vez muchas gracias a la familia Carr y la familia Garner, y para justicia que vamos y todavía no lo hemos recibido, pero tenemos un poco con lo que oímos hoy. Gracias.
So, no, where she going? Where she going?
You okay?
Dan Courtney Parker.
He's
Courtney. Dan Courtney Parker.
You okay?
Can y'all
Speak first.
Good evening. I'm State Senator Kevin Parker. I represent the 21st District in Brooklyn, which is Flatbush and East Flatbush, Midwood, Ditmas Park, Windsor Terrace, and Park Slope. I'm the majority whip in the New York State Senate. And let me just begin by saying my condolences to Gwen Carr and the Garner family. This is in no way a day of celebration. We are here, and I join those who are adding their voice, recommitting themselves to the fight for justice for here in the city of New York. We know that justice denied, the justice delayed is justice denied. And so we've been denied justice on so many fronts. And so we're calling on, first, the district attorney in Staten Island to prosecute the officers who were involved, who have not been prosecuted yet. We are calling on the mayor and the police commissioner to do the right thing and do what they can administratively to penalize these officers. But more importantly, as a state legislator, I'm calling on Andrew Cuomo, our governor, to call an extraordinary session right away to bring forward bills that deal with a special prosecutor for those who kill unarmed civilians.
yes.
And while we're at it, we also need to deal with the issue of 50A.
That's right. Amen.
And at least those 2 things need to be on our agenda, Mr. Governor. Let's make sure that we criminalize criminal actions here in the state of New York.
That's right.
And send a clear message that the police are here to serve and protect. And make sure that every single community gets justice applied fairly. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Dan Court from Midtown Manhattan. The scourge of police violence against unarmed black and brown men will continue until and unless officers like Pantaleo and those who were his accomplices in this act are held to account for their action. It'll never stop until days like this are not the extraordinary, but the normal. I have stood with Gwen Carr too many times in Albany, here in the city, in the administrative hearing room, watched her pain. Officer Pantaleo, he gets to go home tonight.
That's right.
He gets to have a barbecue over the weekend if he chooses to. Gwen doesn't, and her son, of course, does not. But we, Reverend Floyd talked about it, about the diversity and the broadness of the coalition you see behind us as compared to those who stood behind the PBA and Pat Lynch. I will say this, until people of good conscience come together, until people who represent districts like mine also stand with people of different districts, we will never get the success and the reform we need. I am here to pledge my support to continue in this effort until all the officers, all the accomplices in this act are thrown off the force.
Thank you. So before we bring up our final speakers, I just want to acknowledge that Alicia Flagg Gardner, Eric Garner's sister, is here with us. And Michael Gardner, Eric Garner's cousin, is also here with us today. We're going to bring up Alicia Flagg Gardner, Eric Garner's sister, to say a few words.
I got me some notes here today that I watched as the conference went on. So I want to address this to Mr. Kangaroo, Mr. Ticking Time Bomb, and Mr. It's Not a Big Deal. Know that you're ticking time bomb. Know that y'all the ticking time bombs. Know that y'all not a big deal. Decision that was made fairly. No confidence vote, Pat Lynch said. Eric lost his life because of a cigarette. Samir Rice lost his life because of a plastic handgun. Sean Bell enjoying his bachelor party. Too fast. And Sandra Bland for driving the right speed in a racist neighborhood. All these people lost their lives unselfishly. And today's decision was the right decision because the police officers that I'm friends with, that I'm family with, is not good to be in the force with this type of police officer because he put their lives at danger, the ones that's doing the right thing, the one that's doing their job.
That's right.
Okay? So I'm glad this decision came out because now my cousins and my good friends could be a lot safer on the force and don't have to worry about people being against them because of this officer and his negligence. Thank you so much, Mr. O'Neill, for the courage that you put forward today and giving this decision, you know, for everyone. It's not just for my family, it's for everyone. You set an example today. The police officers that's got this crazy nonsense in their mind that they could do things and get away with it, think again.
That's right. So I'd like to bring up our next speakers, which is Casey Foster. These are people who have been throwing down to make sure that not only Pantaleo, but all these officers get fired. So that's Casey Foster, Make the Road New York, Anthony Pierre, Brooklyn Movement Center, and Linda Sarsour, Justice League New York City. Please come up.
And Zakia and Sarah.
Where? Anthony, come up here.
My name is Anthony Pierre. And I'm the Deputy Director of the Brooklyn Movement Center. We're in Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights. We're a member of Communities United for Police Reform. And I'm here to say, this is not justice. Commissioner O'Neill blamed Eric Garner for his own death in his statement. He said Eric should not have resisted, but he had an arm around his neck for no good reason. Y'all's mayor, Bill de Blasio, because he's not my mayor. Y'all's mayor called the NYPD's process fair after lying about DOJ, because we have those receipts where DOJ said go ahead and prosecute. And we know our history. We know that Francis Lavoti was fired before DOJ prosecuted.
That's right.
So don't play those games, Mayor de Blasio. Who has ever heard of getting fired with no acknowledgement of accountability? The message to the public has been, we're firing him, but we don't think he did anything wrong.
Facts.
They're not firing him because it's just. They're firing him because we made it politically uncomfortable for him to keep his job. They're giving us scraps from the table and they're calling it a gourmet meal. This is not justice. Eric Garner deserves more. Gwen Carr deserves more.
That's right.
Yeah.
We as people, as human beings, we deserve more.
That's right.
It would be so easy for us to call this the end. It would be so easy to say, we got a cop fired, cops never get fired, let's move on. But we're not here to play politics. These are our lives.
Right.
Justin D'Amico lied. Ramos did nothing to help. Adonis already has charges pending. This is a no-brainer. Charge Adonis. Bring charges against the other officers who were on the video. Bring charges against Christopher Bannon. Stop telling these lies. Stop acting like the city, like NYPD got it right, when we know that the CCRB are the ones who stepped up and prosecuted.
That's right.
They telling me to stop, and I'm gonna stop. But just because I'm leaving these mics doesn't mean this fight for justice is gonna stop.
Right.
So we're gonna be here with Ms. Carr. We're gonna be here as we've been here, and you know who ain't here? Y'all's mayor, y'all's police commissioner ain't here. So this is our movement, and we're gonna get the people's justice.
Yes. Power to the people. No peace. No peace. Justice. No peace.
Hello, my name is Casey Foster. I'm with Make the Road New York. I'm going to make my comments brief. The mayor today talked about today as if it's the culmination of a process of justice started by the city. We know that is not true. We're standing here today because Ms. Carr, the Garner family, community organizations across the city have been relentless in their fight for justice. Today is a first step towards real accountability for the murder of Eric Garner, police misconduct and brutality in our communities. But it took 5 years for us to get here. Let's not forget, we saw a man killed in broad daylight on video, and it took us, what's supposed to be a progressive city, 5 years for just one of the officers to be held accountable.
Too long.
That's 5 years too long, and it's not a comprehensive process of accountability or justice for the Garner family or for communities of color that still face police harassment and brutality every day. The trial revealed gross misconduct by multiple officers, both on the scene and supervising, and I have not heard the mayor or commissioner once mention the conduct of the other officers or what are they going to do about holding those officers accountable. Until those other officers are held accountable, we're going to be out here fighting for justice for Ms. Carr and for the family. And until a process starts to hold those officers accountable, the mayor cannot tell us when justice has been received. Justice is not coming from City Hall. He sat on his hands for 5 years idly by while this family and this city had to grieve with no accountability whatsoever. Now is not the time for him to be telling the city when justice has been received. We will tell the city when it's been received. The people will chart that movement for justice, not the mayor. Thank you.
Right. Yes.
Linda Sarsour, Justice League.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Sarsour. I'm with the Justice League and with Empower Change. Many of you have seen me on this movement for a really long time, and I just want to say to Ms. Gwen Carr that In 2015, myself and Tamika Mallory, we marched for 250 miles from Staten Island, New York to Washington, D.C. in honor of your son. And we continue to be on the streets for you and your family and for the many mothers that have stood with you as their children have been murdered at the hands of the police. And then recently on July 31st, Tamika Mallory, Kirsten Foy, my son, the General, Angelo Pinto, and myself, we stood up in Detroit at the DNC debates to humiliate Mayor de Blasio because he was not about to stand up on that stage running for president and saying that he ended stop and frisk when Eric Garner died on his watch exactly by a policy like stop and frisk and bringing back broken windows policing to New York City. Mayor de Blasio came to this conclusion in some backroom deals because he wanted to appease the New Yorkers, the loud New Yorkers, the justice seekers that you see here, including the Eric Garners, so that we can then forget so he can go back on the campaign trail. But we are not New Yorkers that forget. We will be on Mayor de Blasio. We will follow you to every state that you go to campaign and remind you that you cannot be the president of the United States of America in the way in which you are treating the Garners and all the other mothers and families that have lost loved ones at the hands of the New York Police Department. We are not tired, we are not exhausted, and we will continue to be out in these streets. If it takes 10 years, 20 years, we pray that we got that length of life to continue to hold you and the New York Police Department accountable. And the next mayor of New York City needs to know that if those officers are not fired by the time there's a new election, there will be no mayor that will step on any stage or in any city hall that is not going to commit to the New Yorkers that those officers will be in fact fired at the hands of a new mayor.
And another warrior queen, our sister Zakiya Ansari.
It's Carr. Yes. I wasn't expecting to speak. I've been able to participate in many moments of advocacy and justice for Eric Garner over the years. And when I heard the decision today, I have to admit, when it was getting closer in, I was like, it's not going to happen. I didn't believe it would happen. When it did, it was a level of relief, but almost still this moment of like, what's going to happen? Like, when's the next shoe going to drop to tell us that this is not real? But at the same time, what I know is important is like longevity. This movement has been moving because there's people that I see here right now today that many of them, some of them I didn't even know their name, but every time I was here, they were here. And so for that, I want to thank the people that have been here, who have worn out their shoes, who have worn out their voices and chants to stand for justice for Eric Garner and so many others that have lost their lives at the hands of police officers. I did not listen to Pat Lynch. You know why I didn't listen to him? Because I heard the speech before. I've seen Godfather over and over again, and the Godfather's a better rendition. And all I knew what was going to happen was this man was going to stand up here and say, be angry and volatile. I've seen that before too, right? We've seen that over and over again, and say nothing in regards to healing, but everything in regards to separation. So I don't need to see that. And what I need to say to folks like Pat Lynch, guess what? You are the biggest gang leader in town.
That's right.
Your mouth is big, and you act like you run this city, but you don't.
That's right.
As was shared, you are an employee.
That's right.
And it is our obligation to make sure we hold you accountable. If you're sitting there telling us that the police officers in our community are supposed to do less than protect us as community members, then you have to be in violation of something.
That's right.
And Mayor de Blasio, you know, you want to run for president. I'm not sure why. Look, that's you, between you and your family. But we need you here, standing up for justice in our community. We don't need you in Iowa. Every press conference that I've been at, I've never seen you here. I've never seen you here. And be honest, I haven't been at all of them, but I've been at enough that you should have been at one.
That's right.
So as I close right now, I just want to say to the Garner family my deepest condolences, but I also want to say to everybody here, those who are listening, we need more warriors in this fight for justice.
That's right.
We have worn out our shoes, but we got other pair on. I just bought a new pair the other day. I'm ready to do the walk. And we are not going to be quiet and sit silent. As was shared, the next mayor, know that you are going to be held accountable if this mayor does not show us his accountability.
That's right. So before we bring up